I'm Samantha Brown, professional organizer, decluttering specialist, and business coach. I created Pro Organizers Coach podcast to empower you to reach new heights in your business. I am on a mission to build a supportive sisterhood of passionate professional organizers. So whether you're a seasoned pro or you're just getting started, this podcast is for you. Hey friends, welcome back to the Pro Organizers Coach podcast. Today is an episode that you are going to want to grab a pen and paper. You are going to want to take notes, I promise you, because we are talking all about the things that we all deal with, which is pricing, our packages, our sessions, maybe our profit that we should be getting, and all of the things that have to do with those money conversations that stress a lot of us out, but that as entrepreneurs, we should be having those conversations. So today I have a money clarity coach. She is a pricing power strategist, and her name is Linda Hunt, and I am so excited to have her. So thank you, Linda, for being on the show.
Samantha, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here today and to meet with your audience. So, and give them some good information about money. And we're going to make those money conversations not so damn hard. So,
right. Please. Yes. That's always a plus. Yeah, no, I love it. So will you tell everyone just a little bit about who you are and how you got to where you are, and then we'll dive right in.
Sure. So, I founded my company, Some Solutions, many years ago, over 20 years ago. And I was a pioneer in the outsourced accounting industry. So I was offering remote accounting services before it became a thing. And we did that. We still do that today. We offer that. But over the years, I started working with entrepreneurs and I started understanding that they had a lot of, I don't want to say difficulty, but they had a lot of challenges around money, right? Talking about money. And also, I was picking up your Southern twang there for a minute. So they were, they had trouble stating their rates and getting them confidently, right? There was a lot of confusion between offering their services and thinking that that was reflective of their worth. So I started really diving in and helping, especially women business owners, understand the difference between their services and, just helping them create, I guess, a framework where they could really create a business that was sustainable, right? And profitable, and one that they felt really good about. So my business evolved over the years. We have I moved into pricing, and then we also offer financial clarity, right? We help them get really clear about their numbers and, not be afraid of them is basically at the end of the day. So because when you understand something, you're no longer takes the fear away from it.
Absolutely. I love that you brought that point up because it's true. When anytime I'm like getting ready for tax season or I am doing anything, it seems so much harder and so much more, worrisome and bigger and this huge mountain I have to climb. And then when I actually sit down and just do it or figure it out or whatever it is, I'm like, why? Wait, that wasn't so hard. Like, why
Right.
didn't I just do that sooner? Like that was like, I've been putting this off for 6 months or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
And money is exactly one of those things. Like, it seems very, like, we all want it. Obviously, we're working
We
to
do.
bring in an income. But then we kind of get in this place of like, oh, I don't understand, like, my taxes versus
Mhm.
what I'm paying for. Like, we make it sometimes a lot more complicated, I guess, than it needs to be. But I'm so glad that there are people like you that are out there having these conversations so it isn't so scary. And so
Yes.
these women can understand it a lot better.
Thank you. And I think, Samantha, part of it is we're afraid we're going to ask the wrong question, right? But there are no dumb questions. And I'm not going to lie to you, I am not a tax specialist, even though I deal with numbers, but taxes can be a little daunting, right? And we're not going to talk about taxes today, but if I can make any point that hopefully you'll take away with is ask the question, even if because it is your money and you should understand why you're paying taxes in a certain way. And CPAs can be scary. but because they just think differently, right? I find that, I'm not your typical accountant, right? I find that the pro organizer, I call them pro organizers, but the organizer community, they're creative. They're coming up with
Mhm.
solutions. They're solving problems on the fly. And you're doing that in a very dynamic way. Just remember, CPAs are a little drier. They think differently. They think linearly. So don't allow that difference to stop you from asking your question. Ask your question anyway.
Yeah, and my little quick piece of advice is what I've always done whenever I'm ready to find a tax professional or whatever it may be for my business is I go do interviews. I go
Yes.
and do a few or a handful of different like consultations. I ask my questions. I interview them because they are the ones not needing my business, but like it has to be a good fit and it has to be a good collaboration. And I
Yes.
find that if they're not willing to kind of help me and talk to me and go above and beyond before, they're definitely not going to once
Right.
I start paying them. No offense. That's for
Don't.
anybody.
Absolutely
But yeah,
correct.
go do those interviews. Okay, so speaking
Yeah.
of money,
Mhm.
what I know today we definitely wanted to make sure we kind of talk to the different stages of business, right? So
Yes.
like the beginner and then
Mhm.
somebody that's like been in business for a while. So maybe we start with the beginner. Like what are
Okay.
some of the things that you find or that you would advise a beginner that is just getting started when it comes to money?
With their pricing. With their pricing for their
Yes.
business? Okay. So the first thing that most new business owners do is they default to hourly pricing because they think they're being fair, right? They think it's simple, they think they're being fair. But what I want that there's a truth that time is not replenishable, money is, right? And you're bringing value as being an organizer, you're bringing value to your customer. So, all of that knowledge that you have, all of that creativity that you have in solving those problems, that is not something that you're trading minutes for, right? So I want you to stop thinking about trading dollars for hours, okay? So we want to break that myth. So even though it might be easy, you're bringing an expertise, even if you're just starting out, that's why that person is hiring you. So
Mhm.
one of the things you might want to think about, and I know you use this term a lot, Samantha, you use sessions, right?
Mhm.
So sessions are when you're going to a session, you're basically why don't I'm going to assume I understand how you do that, but like you're meeting with that person, and you're charging them, say, a flat rate fee for a session. Let's just say it's $300. When you're going in, you're doing some pre-planning before you go in there. You've got maybe some
Mhm.
materials you're bringing in. You may be leaving them with some tips and tricks beyond just being physically with that person. All of that has value, right? So if you were charging them an hourly rate for something like that, you're going to miss out. Like you're actually undercharging. And I hope is that making sense? Is
Oh,
that landing?
yes. I say it all the time to my ladies in the community. I'm like, "Listen, like you are exactly what you said. We've got the phone call, then the consultation, then we have if we need to measure and if we need to go get products, we have the research time for those
Yes,
products. We like all of those things, and when you are even whether you're doing hourly session packages, whatever, that number, we are only or most of us in the beginning are only thinking about the time we are in the client's home. That is
correct.
not the only time that we are
No,
spending to help them with this project.
right.
So if you're not taking into account all of those other things, then you're like, "Oh
Right.
gosh, I'm charging $75 an hour." Well, no, not really, because once you start looking and breaking it all down, you're probably making more like 30 something an hour if you think about
Exactly.
the amount of time, the gas, all of it.
Exactly. That is exactly right. You just illustrated beautifully how they're leaving money on the table and they're undercharging, they're undercutting their worth. So, one of the things I would also recommend for a new person just starting out is you have to understand your number, right? You have to understand what is the dollar amount that you need to charge in order to sustain your business. And I do have it's called the perfect pricing formula and it's free to your audience. And basically what that does is it walks you through the math, right? It takes all of your business expenses and then it adds to it how much salary that you want to make. And I know it might sound a little daunting, but I promise you, it takes less than 15 minutes to fill this out. And what that number that you get to is the number that you need to sustain you and your business. That means your business can scale and grow and you're paying yourself. So those two things are super important, whether you're starting this business as a side hustle or if you want this business to become your full-time job or you're the breadwinner, right? It doesn't matter. You have to know and the baseline, that's your baseline number. And then what I would recommend is once they know that, then they add on for those incidentals, right? To get to that session price. So let's just say that baseline number for simplicity's sake is $100, but you're going to charge a session price, say $300. And in a session, how you're going to describe that to your client is you're going to include, well, I'm going to meet with you. We're going to assess, maybe 3 rooms. I'm not sure exactly how you would do it, Samantha, but we're going to measure, we're going to come up, you're going to have a mini plan at the end of this session. All of that. Do you see how that, like, if you only need to make $100, but all that expertise, that $200 represents to get to that $300 session price represents the value of the expertise you are bringing to that client.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that a lot of us hit, speaking of money, and especially when we're first starting, is we have this myth, and it is a myth that, oh, well, the people I'm wanting to serve can't afford it.
Yes.
Or, oh, I'm just beginning, so my worth is like I'm not an expert yet,
Mhm.
or whatever that looks like. And honestly,
Right.
one of the reasons that I called it pro organizers coach instead of professional work is because that word professional for a lot of us when we're first starting is this like scary word. We don't
Yeah.
feel professional yet before we've worked with,
Okay.
quite a few clients, to be honest, for most of us.
Sure.
And so it's all of those things that we have to catch ourselves with
Mhm.
our mindset, our thought, our self talk. And however it is that we're laying the foundation for that, or like the thoughts we're thinking, that's going to be our reality. So if you keep telling yourself, oh, my clients or the people I'm wanting to help, they can't afford this, you're going to be attracting people that can't afford you. If
That is
you
correct.
are if you are sitting there thinking like thinking, speaking, like all of it has life in it, and you have to start catching yourself. And sometimes, honestly, fake it till you make it. Like if I don't
Exactly.
care, like if you need to speak it and say it over and over again in the mirror every morning, like, I know what I'm doing. Like if I don't, like I'm going to go into the community, they'll help me figure it out, or whatever it is you need to tell yourself
Right.
to then be like, but I promise you, people pay for this and they pay for a lot more than this,
Correct.
getting a lot less value than what almost all of us offer.
So here's another myth that's out there. When someone says to you, I don't have the money, right? That is not true. That is a story. That is another story that we tell ourselves because if you think about it, we always have the money to buy what it is we want, right?
Mhm.
So I'll tell you a story. When I first started out in business, I was charging by the hour. The faster I worked, the less money I made. And I was getting punished for being more efficient. And now mind you, I'm a single woman at this point. I'm struggling, but I always found the money to go have my hair done. Always, right? Because that was what was important and valuable to me. So when you find yourself going into your head and saying, you start getting nervous, like you're nervous, you can feel the butterflies in your solar plexus. That is your money story bubbling up. And what I want
Mhm.
you to say to yourselves in that moment is, I belong to this moment and this moment belongs to me. So that'll ground you, right? And then what you want to do is have your rate in your head written down on a piece of paper. So if you're on a phone call, have it in front of you and have it in a big piece of paper. And then when it's time to say what your rate is, if you're brand new, just say the rate and be quiet.
Yes, amen.
Be quiet. And as women, we try to fill the space, right? Because we get nervous. And what you want to do is you want to be quiet and then let the person talk. Because sometimes when they say, well, that's too expensive, or they give you another objection, they're really not saying no. They're saying they don't have enough clarity. Okay. Which is why newbies in business always default to hourly rate, because there is no, it is what it is, right? It's like I charge $50 an hour or I charge $100 an hour. But if you go in with a session price, you want to make sure that you're communicating the value of the transformation that they're going to be getting. And Samantha, you'd probably be better off talking to the transformation that you can give someone in that first
Yes.
session better than I can. But if you can give that person clarity around that transformation and you say your price is $300 and you want to say it like that, a session with me is $300 to start an introductory session. Very, you know, very level, they're going to say yes because you're coming
Mhm.
from a place of confidence. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
and honestly, I like when I first started, and I mean, I know this to be true. When I first started, like I was that person too, where I was like, oh my gosh, like $20 an hour sounds amazing. And like, all these things, right? And to go from that to like now where I've had to have that conversation with a few different, potential clients where they're like, wait, it costs how much? And I'm like, yes. But this is what you're getting for it. And once I explain the value and the
Mhm.
transformation, oh, okay. And a few of them have said, well, I don't know that I can afford that right now. And I'm like, I totally understand. Not everyone is ready for this process.
Right.
That's okay. I have a lot
Yes.
of people that call me. They're not ready. They save up for a period of time. And when you are ready, you can call me back. I promise
Correct.
I will still be here. And then we will get started.
So
And they're
you
just
just,
like, oh, okay.
yeah. And you also hit on something, 2 points that I want to highlight. One, everyone is not your customer, and that is okay. You are not a fit for every single person, nor should you be. Okay. And you don't want to you as a service provider want your client to meet you where you are. So I love, Samantha, that you did not go, oh, okay, well, I'll do X, Y, and Z so that you can start today. No, that's not what you did, because
Mm-mm.
you are offering a transformation service, a transformational
Mhm.
service. You are creating calm out of chaos, right? As a pro organizer. And that is invaluable, right? There is no price tag on that. And if that person is not ready to move out of their chaos, however it might be, to a place of calm, no matter what you do, they're not going to be happy. That
Exactly. Those
you
are
know,
always the clients that I'm like, "I knew better than this. I knew better than to discount it. I knew better than to." And it's exact I've never looked at it that way. I mean, I've looked at it in different ways, but exactly what you said. It's because and I knew it's because 'cause they're not ready. I tell people that all the time. Like, some people just aren't ready.
they
They're
aren't
asking for more information. They're thinking about getting ready, but a lot of people that
right.
call us, they've never been taught how to organize. They've never been taught how to
Correct.
have peace. They've never been taught. So
Right.
you're going in sometimes and helping a 55-year-old, 60-year-old woman that has never been taught this stuff, that's lived in her house for 15 or 20 years.
Right.
And, it's like if they don't understand that, hey, this is going to take some time because
Mhm.
we have to rewire some stuff in your mind. We've got to like create new habits in your home. We have to
Right.
get some stuff out of here. Like there's a
Right.
lot that goes into this.
Yes.
And if they're not ready for it, then they're gonna be miserable, you're gonna be miserable, and it's not worth it at all to take on
Not
those
worth it at all.
clients.
Not at all. But what you just described, Samantha, is exactly how to approach a money conversation. It's exactly it, because if that person's not ready, no matter what you do, it's not going to be a happy experience for you or them. If you're new, it's going to create doubt in your mind as to your
Mm,
expertise. And it's I know at the beginning when all started, like I was guilty of this. I wanted clients, right? Like, oh my God, they said yes. And but in when they said yes, or I discounted or whatever, I would get this feeling in my gut, right?
mhm.
And I'd be like, "Oh," and I call that leaking power, right? Because instead of holding up my standards and my boundaries, I dimmed myself to work with this particular person or this particular business. And in the end, it was the doorway that opened up to more compromise, right?
Mhm.
It opened up more compromise in all of the services and the relationship. And then when you build up resentment, right? So I'll share quickly, like I basically was doing this when I first started out. And I was at a point where I was working faster, getting paid less. I was compromising. I kept hustling more because I needed to pay the bills. And I resented my business. I resented my clients. I didn't like anything about it. I actually created a scenario for myself that was worse than having a job. And it's all because I wasn't holding my standards and or boundaries. I kind of use those words interchangeably. So, ladies, listen to Samantha. She's advising you the right way. She's telling you. I love the idea of session pricing. You can call it packages if you'd like, but I actually think session is much more appropriate for your industry. And a session includes that's a great introductory way to sell yourself to someone, right? So we're kind of segueing a little bit, but when I was offering accounting services, how I started to gain confidence in my pricing is I actually did a paid evaluation. I charged a flat rate fee. I want to say maybe it was $150. And I would give them back a report that allowed them to see the person to see exactly what I needed to do in their accounting file to get them cleaned up. This is when I was only doing accounting services. And it allowed me to accurately price the next stage of services with them. But I thought I wasn't doing it for them. I was doing it for me. I was doing it to gain confidence. So I love the idea of offering a session, an introductory session, and maybe it's a quick win. Maybe it's, I don't know, organizing a closet or organizing under your kitchen sink or whatever it is. You can come up with something that's a quick win. And then when you're there, you walk around, right? And you say, well, what other or areas would you like to organize? And then you're seeing it. And then you're going to be able to better say, well, I think in order for us to organize this room or your 7 closets or whatever it is, it's going to take 6 sessions or it's going to take 8 sessions. And here's how we can break it down. You want to give yourself the ability to give yourself enough information to chunk down your sales conversation or your money. I call it the money conversation so that you feel confident, right? So that
Mhm.
you're not flying blind and saying, well, I think it could be 20 and it's, 20 sessions and it really needs to be 30 because they're a hoarder, or whatever. So,
Yeah, and I think that's the other piece too is when you're first starting your business, that's how I came up with the session thing is because the idea everyone kept telling me to do packages, do packages, do packages. But when you do packages, make sure to discount it and like there was so much information coming at me
mhm,
that I was like, okay, I've got to keep this simple or I know me, I'm not going to have the confidence to say
right,
what needs to be
right.
said. And so it came like me creating the session thing came out of a necessity
I love
to
it.
have the confidence that I needed to have those money conversations.
I love it. And I think it's an ideal way. I mean, you could probably have a couple of different kind of introductory sessions. You could have a general one. You could have like organize your linen closet, whatever it is. Like you can actually, and then you could run those as specials a couple of times a year if you wanted to generate business.
Ooh,
But
that's a good idea. Even if like, because the sessions are normally the actual like decluttering and organizing sessions, but the actual consultation we normally do. But I like your idea of like, especially in the beginning for the newer people that are trying to build up that clientele. A lot of times we offer like $50 off a session or we offer, like whatever it is that we're offering. But I like your idea of like, because I always tell everyone if I can get them to do one session with me, like an actual decluttering
exactly.
and organizing, they're going to be hooked. And so I like your idea of offering like an introductory session of like,
Mhm.
hey, I'll come do, your linen closet or you pick one closet in your home besides the master. That's at an introductory
That's why I
rate.
said linen.
Yeah. Or like, a small bathroom. I don't know,
Mhm.
something smaller that gets them a
Exactly.
little bit of time to be comfortable with you. It's an introductory rate. That alone is going to help them see and feel
Yes.
and experience what we can do for them. And
Yes.
then from there, they're
It
hooked forever.
that's exactly right. And, you could offer so then once you get them hooked, right? So now my brain is thinking like, okay, they're your client. And then now you've worked with them, say this year. So next year you could offer them a refresh package or a refresh
Mhm.
session where you go in and say, hey, do you need, there's ways to keep your customer base, repeatable customer base without it being the big overhaul job, right? It could be
Right, that it was to start with,
that it was
yes.
to start with. So that's something we could brainstorm on a little bit. But yeah, it's it's
I
there's
love it. I know my brain starts going, like, to a million places as well. And actually speaking of, like, that's probably a good segue into the women that have been organizing for
yes.
a while. What are your kinda, like, tips and strategies for them if they've been, let's say they've been at this, like, 2 to 3 years now, they're kind of at a
Right.
place where, like, business is pretty steady, or, like,
Mhm.
they're paying their bills, they've got a little extra, like, they feel like things are kind of flowing good,
Right.
but they're still not where they wanna be.
Yeah, so I think what you're talking to there, and correct me if I'm wrong, is like they're kind of hit an income ceiling a little bit, right? So
Yeah, where
they
because they're the only person in their business
correct,
typically, where
correct.
they're doing all of it, where they're doing the
Mhm.
sessions, they're doing
Right.
everything, and so, yeah.
Okay. So what I'm gonna recommend is they have to understand their base number again. So we're gonna go back to that, the pricing formula, right? And you need to know how much money you need in your business because your business expenses have probably grown since you started. You also want to make sure that you know what your salary is. And again, so your base number when you first started out, let's just say it was $75 an hour, but now it's $100 an hour. So then what we want to do is add a factor, right? And I call it a factor, but we're going to add on from there so that you can grow your business. So let's just say so this is where my brain's going a little too fast, sorry. So this is where we actually need to understand our math, right? And we also need to
Mhm.
understand where our revenue goal is, okay? And then we're going to kind of bridge the two together. And please stop me, Samantha, if I'm saying something that's not clear. But basically, once we understand the base number, and let's just say we've been making what's a typical monthly revenue for a good organizer? Like monthly revenue,
That's
$5,000,
I mean,
$3,000.
yeah, sure, let's just say 5.
Okay, $5,000 a month. Okay, so that's $60,000 a year. Let's just say you
Mhm.
want to get that to $75,000 per year. So, couple things you need to look at, right? Is how many clients have you serviced under that $60,000? And just take that number and divide it into 60, and then you'll get your average revenue per job, right? So
Mhm.
that's if you've been in business for a bit, you need to increase that what you're selling. Okay. So you can do that two ways. One, you can do that by increasing your session rates, right? And helping you get, so say you want to bridge to $75,000. And then the other thing you can do is you can look to bring on someone to help you, or you can look to have value added services like I don't know, a monthly why couldn't you guys do them? I don't know if they could do a membership or you could do products. I mean, there's a lot of things that you could add to a session. Like when I'm thinking about a session, I am kind of thinking of a package. It's like you get these sessions and we're going to do this and organize it and it's going to include I don't know, me coming back in 6 months or some, just something, but you want to add a little bit more value and touch points with the customer. But did I make I'm not 100%
Oh, no, that makes complete yeah, that
okay,
makes complete sense, like,
okay,
adding the assistants, because that's one thing I just recently did over the past few months, right, is I've
okay,
just started adding assistants,
okay,
and I will say that I personally went from a typical session making right at $300 per session by
okay,
myself to making closer to 550 when I brought on assistants.
Okay.
So one way I did that is I actually added, because whenever I bring an assistant in, I do a 4-hour session instead of 3. So I added an additional hour.
Okay.
The other way I did that is because I'm obviously not paying them what I'm charging the client. So there's
Of course.
additional money coming in to the
Right.
business and to me that is not getting paid out.
Mhm.
And then there was something else that you had said. Oh, I love your idea of the touch points. So I think that right there, like those moments of when you can, like the check-ins, right? Like whether that looks, and I've loved the idea of a membership. If I didn't already have a membership for professional organizers, I would have already created one for my clients so they
Yeah.
could, ask questions, even if we meet once a
Yes.
month, even if we whatever. I would have already created that, but I was like, "I've got too much on my plate, I can't do that too."
Understood.
But for my listeners, for sure, like, you could easily add a membership that's a touch
Yes.
point that clients could go in, ask questions to each other or to you.
Mhm.
It doesn't have to be something that they have to do because all of our stuff is, confidential, but if it's also behind a, like, kind of membership that only clients are a part of, they're still gonna feel like they have that confidentiality, because
Exactly.
you're not putting their names out on social, you're not,
Right.
putting their names
Right.
out, whatever. But that touch point thing, there's definitely something there of some way that like, hey, once we've worked together this many sessions or once we whatever, I actually do a complimentary. I come back in this
Mhm.
many, months to check in and see
Right.
what's working, what's not, and then that way we can move forward from there. Something.
Right. So a client of mine was a roofer, and he was we were looking to create a recurring revenue stream because once you do the roof, you don't need a roof for 30 years, right? I said,
Right.
okay, well, what if after a year you go in and you inspect the roof, you check the gutters, and then I said, what if you offered a gutter cleaning service? So he ended up being able to, because every time he went and checked the roof, something happened because this was more of a it wasn't just a typical tar roof, it was more of a cedar
Mhm.
shingle or slate. They would need repairs. So he ended up getting repair work and he ended up getting repeat gutter gutter cleaning. So he ended up increasing his revenue. So it's from these touch points. But what's interesting is, and I don't know if this is possible, but why can't a organizer instead of only doing one-on-one consultations, what if you had a membership where people who wanna do it themselves pay for your membership and you have a video, right? You have a video of how to organize something, you give them a quick checklist, you give them the products with the links, and you could have affiliate links from through Amazon or whatever, and you could have a membership, right? And then they will eventually, if they're local, right, they'll eventually want to come work with you. They'll eventually need more help. Um,
Yes.
and so the way Samantha's kind of coaching all of you on how to have a business, you could also coach people on how to organize, right? It's just another avenue for you to increase that revenue. It doesn't only have to be you providing the service. There's ways to
Yeah.
create
Well, and
leverage.
I obviously have already gone through the whole experience of having to learn how to create a membership and the highs and lows, and
Yes,
so that might be my next course is how to start a membership as a
there you
professional
go.
organizer.
I love it. I absolutely love it. I love
Because
it.
for me, that's the other piece too that kinda stinks as an organizer sometimes, and as, kinda like you were saying with the roofer guy. Like, when you're the only one going in and doing the sessions, and when the business is on you and you quote unquote "finish with a client," and then they don't need any more services for a year, whatever, it's very hard to think, like, you have to think outside of the box to get
Yes.
these reoccurring revenue pieces coming in,
Yes.
because you don't wanna cap yourself at just being
Right.
like, not just being an organizer, but because what if you get
Understood.
sick for a week? What if your kid gets sick?
Yes.
What if you wanna go on vacation? What if there's all these other
Right.
streams, especially in the world we live in now.
Yep.
Why would you not invest in a few of those? And
Right.
again, we are talking to the women that have been doing this for a little while. This
Yes.
is not
Right.
You do not add this to your plate if you are just starting your business.
No.
But
No.
but once you're established and you've
Mhm.
got your systems and you've got your clients and you've got your rhythm, that's when you start trying to figure out these
Correct.
other avenues to bring in
Yes.
more revenue.
You said something super important that I want to highlight. When you're calculating that base rate that you absolutely need to sustain a business, you actually need to incorporate in that time off, right? So for example, there's 365 days in a year and there's 104 weekend days. So you subtract that out. Then if you want to take 2 weeks vacation or 3 weeks vacation, you then subtract that out. If you want to give yourself 5 sick days, you may never use them. You subtract that out. And if you want to take 11 holidays because, or every school holiday that your child is off, you subtract that out. That leaves you with, so you take, let's just say for argument's sake, you're going to end up working 238 days out of 365 in a year. But here's the other thing. Out of those 238 days, you're not working with clients every single one of those days, okay? So let's say I'm going to do some quick math here. So 238, let's just say 80% of the time you're working with customers. So that's 190 days. So that means that now you say I'm an accountant, but it doesn't mean I'm good at math. There are 48 days. There are 48 days you're working that are not directly linked to revenue. So when you're calculating that base rate, all of that needs to be accounted for. And my perfect pricing formula, the freebie that you're all that you all can sign up and get, will walk you through exactly how to do this, because this way you do get paid vacations, you do get paid holidays, and you're not stressed, right? You also get time to strategically think about and work on your business, because that is the roots, right? That's the root system that allows your business to scale and grow and gives you time to create those memberships once you've been established a little bit. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that's killer. And even something as small as I just found a crazy amazing deal on bins, like just regular totes with the lids at Home Depot, and they were like $4. And I immediately shared with my members, I'm like, oh my gosh, they're selling these for $4. They're normally $16 a
Yeah.
piece. And I'm like, that alone, like I know I can sell these. So
Or
I bought, I don't know, like 100 of them. And so I'm getting ready to, over a span of time, what I paid, let's say $400 for, will now turn into, I mean, even after taxes and all the stuff, like even if I charge them $10 a piece, I'm getting double back
yes,
what I put into, like, which
right.
I'm probably going to charge them like $12.50 a piece is what I've landed
Yeah,
on. So I'm making about $8.50 profit on each
I love
bin
it.
I
I
sell.
I love it.
It's those little things we can
Right.
do, but I also know, again, we're talking to people that have been at this for a little bit,
Mhm.
because it took me getting here to, because when I first started, I didn't have the money to
Of
go out and
course,
get bins and just sit on them and
of
hope I could
course.
sell them, and
Mhm.
so, but as you get into this, there are so many ways, like writing a book is a very common thing for
Yes.
organizers to do that is able to make,
Mhm.
money doing, I mean, there's the
There's a ton of
possibilities are endless.
endless, endless. I totally agree with you, Samantha. There are so many ways, and you wanna think about things that don't require your time, right? Like, and actually, here's another way to leverage. If you've been at this a while and you decide that you wanna bring on assistants or whatever, or you bring on other organizers that you're mentoring, your rate gets to be higher, right? Because if they want to work with you, you're more expensive than, say, somebody else on your team who you're guiding. And that way you start to create hybrid packages, right? Where maybe, they get so much of your time, but then so maybe you're going in and diagnosing. Okay. So this is
Mhm.
another way to create profitability. You go in and diagnose, but let's just call her Sue on your team. She's going to come in and do the tactical decluttering. Now you're paying Sue a little less, but you're making the same amount of money, right? You're charging the premium price. That's another way to leverage profitability here. So,
Yes, 1,000%. And I mean, I love it. Like, there's so many ways to go about this. Okay, so we'll definitely put the link in the show note for your freebie that you're offering them.
yeah.
And I appreciate you so much, because this is honestly the most in-depth money freebie I've ever heard of on a podcast, because
Oh, wow. Thank you.
typically what I've heard of, or what I remember hearing people say is, well, how much do you want to make in a year? Take that, divide it by however many days there are in a year, and that's the number that you get. I never once thought about sick days, about like
Yeah,
weekends. Like, you
right.
don't think about that. The way I've taught it's still a little bit different, which is more of like how much do you need to make per month? And then so how many sessions would you need to work per week? As a very
Sh
basic thing, because I am not an
Sure,
accountant.
sure,
But
sure.
I love the fact that you have this formula that brings in those other
Yeah.
factors. And I think what it's going to help a lot of my organizers realize is that the amount that you're bringing in per day, it has to kind of be that little bit of a higher number,
Does.
or like that's the only way to make it as an organizer, because we're not working 40 hours a week. Now our bodies feel like we are,
Of
our
course.
minds feel like we are.
Right.
Um, but again, because like we talked about at the
Mhm.
beginning, we are just looking at the hours we're in the client's home. And that is the
Yeah.
biggest piece of this, is you have
Yeah.
got to pull back from that. Oh, it's only the few hours I'm there at the session. No, it is so much more.
Right.
And so I love that, as they go into this, I just wanted to kind of remind them of
Yeah.
that fact. Like when you see the number come up of how much you need to make or how much you need to charge or whatever, remember, they're getting all of this other time and energy and effort and
And
wisdom and guidance
expertise.
and
Yes.
expertise from you for sure.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, well,
Absolutely.
thank you
Good.
so much. Tell everyone real quick where they can find you and all that, and
Oh, sure.
yeah.
So, you can find me at, we have a website, sumsolutions.com, SUMSOLUTIONS.com. We are also on Instagram at Some Solutions LLC, Facebook, Some Solutions, I believe it's Some Solutions there. And, yeah, I had a great time. And we're on LinkedIn, but I don't think professional organizers are on LinkedIn. So,
Yeah,
as
a
much as
few,
it
but they're more of for the people that are going after business, owners
gotcha.
that they organize for businesses.
Understood, understood. But no,
Yes.
this was so much fun. Thank you so much for having me. And I hope that someone walks away with something that's gonna help them today. So
Oh
that's
my goodness, they so are. I appreciate you so much. And then for those of you listening, we thank you so much, and I will see you in the next episode.
all right. Thanks.